place where the sunset glows so orange it looks like someone got carried away with the saturation slider, and the wind carries both sand and the smell of lamb being boiled. You're trudging along what used to be called the Silk Road, though right now it feels far less romantic and more like a poor decision involving the wrong shoes and too much confidence in your hiking abilities. Your water flask ran dry at noon. The camel caravan you were trying to tail disappeared long ago into a swirl of dust. You're almost certain the last sign you passed was written in Sogdian, whatever that means. All you know is this: you're alone, a little sunburnt, very hungry, and honestly starting to wonder if eating your leather sandal is a valid survival strategy. And then you see it. A glow dim, flickering, hovering in the thickening dusk. A lantern swaying from a crooked iron hook outside a stone building, half swallowed by the sand. It doesn't look like much, but it smells like cumin and something roasting. You take a few steps closer. The sign above the door is nearly illegible except for a single surviving letter Q. The door creaks open before you can knock. A wave of spiced air hits your face like a warm slap. Inside the room is dim golden and piled with cushions that look older than most empires. A low wooden counter runs along the back. An oil lamp flickers next to a stack of mismatched plates. There's no one else in the cafe, or so you think. From behind, a thick curtain stitched with faded indigo thread, someone steps out. He's tall, lean, wearing a robe dusted with flour. His beard is streaked with gray, but his eyes are the exact shade of cinnamon bark. "Sit," he says, nodding toward a corner near the hearth. You sit. He doesn't ask what you want, just pours something dark and steaming into a bowl carved from horn. You raise it to your lips cautiously. It tastes confusing, like pomegranate and goat's milk, like sea breeze, like a memory you haven't had yet. "You're early," he mutters, sounding faintly disappointed. You open your mouth to ask early for what, but a sudden gust rattles the shutters. The lantern swings wildly, and just for a moment, you swear you see shadows flicker across the far wall, shadows that don't match anything in the room. "You came from the west," the man asks, still watching the pot over the fire. You nod. He grunts. "West brings metal, east brings silk. But the middle brings stories." You glance around. No menu, no prices, no visible kitchen, only the wind whispering across the dunes outside. You try again. "What is this place?" He looks up. This is a crossing. A pause, perhaps a trap. He chuckles softly, though it doesn't feel like a joke. He pours something else, thicker, greenish, and places it before you with a piece of dried fig wrapped in a vine leaf. You pick it up. It's faintly warm in your hand. "You're not the first," he adds, pouring a bowl for himself. "Last week a girl from Samarkand. Before that, a man who claimed he could speak Falcon. What happened to them, you ask?" He shrugs. Some leave, some stay. Some forget they were ever here. You try to laugh, but the fig tastes like dried leaves and old ink. For a second, it's like chewing someone else's poem. Then the door swings open again. No wind, no footsteps. Just open, then closed. Yet no one steps inside. At least not visibly. The man doesn't react. "Ah," he says, "that'll be the goat." You blink, and sure enough, from behind the curtain steps a goat. Small, shaggy, with curling horns and disturbingly wise eyes. A strand of bronze bells dangles from its neck. It snorts, walks past you without interest, and settles near the hearth with the wearied grace of a server at the end of a double shift. You stare. "That's our maitre d'," the man explains. "She's selective. Don't let her lick your boots. You nod slowly, still unsure whether this is heat stroke, a lucid dream, or a very elaborate performance art piece in the middle of nowhere. The man pours one last thing. It fizzes faintly. The bubbles seem to form letters. You squint. They read, "Today's special time soup comes with a memory, yours or someone else's." You glance up sharply. The words are gone. The surface of the drink is still. The man grins. "Don't worry," he says. "The soup always decides." You lift the bowl and drink. Something shifts. The cafe creaks softly like it's breathing. The shadows grow deeper. Somewhere above, a whisper stirs in a language you almost understand. The goat is watching you. Her gaze is not particularly friendly. And in that moment, you realize this cafe is older than maps, older than trade routes, older than the idea of returning. And dinner has only just begun. If you're still here, still listening, and starting to wonder whether this place is real or just a dream steeped in cardamom and thyme, well, maybe you're exactly where you're supposed to be. If the story has pulled you in strange dishes, flickering shadows and all, then take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel so the next journey can find its way to you. And be sure to turn on the notification bell, because in this cafe, the specials tend to appear exactly when you least expect them. Section 2. The Man with the Cinnamon Eyes. The soup doesn't hit your tongue so much as it remembers your tongue. It tastes like damp stone oranges and something that makes your vision shift ever so slightly sideways. You blink. The room tilts and rights itself. The goat sneezes. The man, your cinnamon-eyed host, nods, watching you with interest that feels neither kind nor cruel. Just observant, as if he's done this hundreds of times and always enjoys seeing which way people lean once the first bowl goes down. "You'll feel that behind your eyes for a while," he says. "Ignore it. It's not permanent unless you ask questions you shouldn't. You want to laugh, but your mouth has gone numb. The soup is warm in your belly, like a coiled cat. You feel a memory rise, not yours. You're standing in a marketplace in Kashgar, and a woman with silver earrings is handing you a piece of fruit with trembling fingers. You've never been to Kashgar. You're certain of that. First-timers always get the borrowed memories, the man says, as if reading your mind. The menu adjusts. If it gave you your own too soon, you'd choke. You look down. The menu, there it is now, lying flat on the table. It definitely wasn't there a moment ago. Handwritten in ink that shimmers like beetle shells, the parchment shifts subtly as you read. Each line morphs if you stare too long. Grilled locust with pomegranate molasses becomes salted philosopher tongue, becomes rain-dried fish, not from this world. You glance up, blink hard, and look again. The menu now says only, "Choose with your instincts." You raise an eyebrow. Is this some kind of test? "No," says the man. "It's dinner." You hesitate. The goat coughs. You pick something at random, well, sort of random. You go for the one that looks most like a real food item. Roasted lentils and date bread with saffron syrup. The man nods once. Wise. The bread is new today. She brought it. He gestures behind you. You turn. No one's there. But then she is. You blink again, and a woman is suddenly standing by the far wall, slight cloaked hands dusted with flour. Her face is hidden beneath layers of veils, but her eyes are visible and they're wide with something like worry, or maybe memory. Or perhaps you've already forgotten what you saw. She bows her head once and disappears behind another curtain. This one printed with the outline of a city wall, crumbling into vines. Your lentils arrive without fanfare. The plate is warm, hand-painted with a scene that looks suspiciously like you entering the cafe. The date bread is soft steaming gently, and the saffron syrup smells like sunlight might if sunlight ever took a bath in honey and regret. You eat, and it's the best thing you've ever tasted. You don't realize you've cleaned the plate until the goat nibbles your sleeve in judgment. You met her, says the man refilling your cup with something pale and minty. Most don't. She's particular. You open your mouth to ask who she is, but he holds up a hand. You'll ask at least 5 questions tonight. Some have answers, some do not. But be careful what you ask first. You nod slowly. Okay, then you say, "Who are you?" He laughs. It's a tired laugh, like he's been waiting for that one. Ah, he says, the most boring question of all. He leans back against the counter, folding his arms. Let's just say, I've served soup to kings and thieves. Once a Roman senator cried into his lentils because someone stole his horse. Another time, a Mongol general traded 3 emeralds for a single dumpling. You pause. So, you've been here a while. Long enough to forget where I'm from, he says. Longer still to stop caring. You look around again. The place doesn't seem to have any walls you didn't already notice, but somehow it also feels like it stretches further than physics would allow. There's a window now. It looks out over sand dunes. A woman in blue is walking across them with a bundle on her back. She turns her head. She has no face. You blink. The window is gone. Don't stare too long at anything here, the man says gently. Even the goat has her secrets. The goat snorts in agreement. You sip your drink, mint, milk. The faintest trace of something metallic. I came here by accident, you say. Most do, he replies. But where is here? He sighs. It's a cafe, he says, on the Silk Road, in the middle of too many maps and not enough truths. Then he leans closer, lowering his voice. But if you must name it, you're somewhere between memory and appetite, between time and digestion. He pats your shoulder. You'll get used to it. You aren't sure if you want to get used to it. The curtain stirs. Not wind, not footsteps, just motion. And then a bell rings. Not loudly, just once. The man straightens. Ah, he says. She's finished with the next course. You didn't order another course, but you're starting to suspect that doesn't matter. Do I have to eat it, you ask? He smiles soft, almost kind. You don't have to do anything here, he says, except listen. The curtain parts again, and something is wheeled out. You don't quite see what it is. The lighting flickers, the shadows lean too far, and the smell. Oh, the smell is so layered, so strange, that you can't tell if it's food or a memory of incense. The plate is placed before you by unseen hands. The goat stands up, ears perked. Try it, says the man. This one usually triggers something fun. You take a breath. You lift your spoon. And just before the first bite touches your lips, you hear someone whisper your name, but there's no one behind you. Section 3. The menu that changes when you blink. The whisper doesn't come again. It hangs in the air for just a second, then folds itself neatly back into the silence. You glance behind you. Nothing. Just shadows, possibly thicker than they were a moment ago. Your spoon hovers over the dish. It's stew, maybe. Thick dark with something like chickpeas, except they blink. Very slowly. You blink back. One of them winks. You get used to it, the man says casually, sipping from a cup that wasn't in his hand a moment ago. The goat, now standing to your left like a hairy sommelier, snorts impatiently. She nudges your elbow, urging you forward. Fine. You take a bite. It tastes like firewood and childhood, like the first lie you ever told and the strange relief that followed. Then sweetness, a burst of quince and toasted almond, followed by something inexplicably bitter, like overcooked fate. You look up, swallowing hard. That, you begin and stop. Because the cafe is no longer empty. Now there are people at the other tables, only faintly lit, all in mid-conversation, their voices low and layered. But when you squint, they flicker, like mirages made of sound and steam. A woman lifts a bowl and vanishes halfway through the sip. A man stirs his plate over and over, never eating. "Don't mind them," says the man. "They're echoes, mostly harmless. Mostly you ask." He smiles. "They only get dangerous if you agree with them." You decide not to look too closely. You focus instead on the menu again. Yes, the same one from earlier. Except this time it's different. You didn't see anyone change it. But now the top reads, "Menu for the spiritually confused." Underneath that, truth tabbouleh, cognitive dissonance skewers, regret reduction, platter side of pickles. The last item reads, "Chef's choice, whatever you most deserve." You point. "That one." The man raises an eyebrow. Brave, or foolish you think, but it's too late now. The plate that arrives is almost disappointingly normal. A folded flatbread stuffed with something golden sweet and slightly sticky. It's warm to the touch and smells faintly of your grandmother's kitchen, despite the fact that your grandmother never once cooked a day in her life. You take a bite. And then the cafe begins to dissolve. Not literally, but the walls stretch, the floor tilts, the tables drift farther apart. The flickering people become sharper, more defined. You can see a man in a blue turban scribbling equations on a napkin. A child drawing maps with her spoon in the soup. And on the wall behind you, a mirror appears. You don't remember it being there before. You glance into it and see something that makes your throat tighten. It's you. Sort of. Wearing something different. Sitting alone, but older. Or younger. Or from a version of your life where one choice had gone a different way. You look happy. Or maybe just distracted. You blink and the mirror goes dark again. "Careful," says the man. That dish tends to summon reflections. "Was that really me?" you ask. He shrugs. One version. One flavor. Reality's not a one-course meal. Do people leave this place, you ask, already afraid of the answer? Some do, he says. Some think they do. You stare at him. You're not going to give me a straight answer, are you? He looks genuinely apologetic. We ran out of those around the same time the Mongols ran out of horseshoes. You laugh despite yourself. Historians still argue he adds whether this place was ever part of the Silk Road proper or something that clung to it, like moss on the side of a trade route. You don't know what to say to that, so you take another bite. It tastes like relief, which is alarming. The goat bumps your chair again, then trots over to the curtain and waits there, one hoof tapping rhythmically. She's ready, the man says. Who you ask? He points to the curtain, the chef, or the kitchen, depends how you define identity. You stand slowly. Your knees creak like old hinges. The goat leads the way. You follow. Behind the curtain is not a kitchen. It's a corridor, long, dim, paved with uneven stones that echo your steps. On the walls, murals, painted in styles from a dozen cultures. Persian blues, Chinese ink strokes, Byzantine gold. All depicting the same place, the cafe. In every era, every kingdom. It's always here. You pass one mural that shows a Viking warband dining quietly inside horned helmets, removed eyes downcast. Another shows a French soldier weeping over a bowl of lentils. You pass a final painting unfinished. The figure in it is sketchy, barely outlined, but it's wearing your boots. New dish incoming, says the man softly behind you. You round the corner and step into the kitchen. Except it's not a kitchen. It's a courtyard open to the sky, moonlight pooling like cream across the tiles. The air smells of cardamom and wood smoke. There's a low table in the center. On it, a single candle, a pile of dried apricots, and an empty bowl. And sitting beside the table is a woman. You recognize her, though you're sure you've never met her before. She raises her head slowly, and you see her eyes. They are the exact shade of yours. She gestures to the bowl. "I made this one for you," she says. Section 4. The goat that knows too much. You hesitate. The bowl is empty, but not in a neglected, "oh, we haven't poured the soup yet" way. No, this is intentional. This is the kind of emptiness that means something. The woman gestures again, more gently this time, as if to say, "Yes, I know it's strange, but trust me." You step forward. Your footfalls echo on the tile like dropped dice. You sit. She doesn't speak, just watches. "Is this part of the meal?" you ask. She nods once. You're still chewing. You look down at your own hands. You aren't chewing. Not anymore. Not physically, anyway. But you feel it, the mental mulling over of everything you've eaten so far. The memories borrowed, the faces glimpsed, the mirror reflection that shouldn't have known your name. So, what now? She gestures to the bowl again. Offer something. "I don't have anything," you begin, but even as you say it, something shifts. The faint weight in your pocket. A folded receipt. A string. A stone that you picked up 3 weeks ago and forgot to throw away. You place the stone in the bowl. The woman watches. She doesn't nod, doesn't judge, just accepts. And then slowly, the bowl begins to fill. Not with soup, with sound. You hear it first as a hum, low, resonant, then whispers trickling like water over glass. Words in languages you don't speak but understand in the way you understand your own breath. The bowl glows faintly gold. The stone sinks. The woman speaks. Every traveler leaves something. Every traveler takes something. You look at her. "What am I taking?" She lifts her palm. A single lentil rests in the center. "This." You blink. "That's it. It will remember you," she says. "Even if you forget it, you don't quite know what to do with that, so you just nod." She closes her hand, and when she opens it again, the lentil is gone. She gestures once more to the far archway now revealed at the edge of the courtyard. "Back to the table," she says. "They're waiting." "They..." She tilts her head. "You'll see." So you rise, follow the curve of stone, and step back through the arch. And walk into a room now bursting with life. Every table is full. Not just shadows now, people, or what pass for people here. There's a man wrapped in camel hide laughing into a cup of something steaming blue. A woman in silk sleeves, eyes closed, murmuring to a bowl like it's an oracle. A boy made entirely of paper folding napkins into birds. No one looks up at you, except the goat. She's now perched smugly on a windowsill, chewing something that may or may not be a menu. Your host, cinnamon-eyed, still calm, waves you back to your table. You sit. A plate is waiting. This time it holds a small round pastry, perfectly golden, glazed lightly, topped with crushed pistachios and petals. Yes, rose petals. A dessert, finally. You sigh with relief. Something normal. The man grins. "Is it?" You lift the fork somehow. It's the same one from before, the one that tingled cold, and take a bite. And you're not sitting anymore. You're standing in a marketplace. But not just any market. This one is alive. The air is thick with spice and shouting and coins. The colors too bright, the fabrics too soft, the bread too hot. The air smells like everything at once. Saffron, smoke, wool, horse oil, incense, and cinnamon. You're wearing something strange, embroidered, a sash around your waist, and you're holding a tray. On it, those same golden pastries, but this time you made them. A customer, a boy with ink on his fingers, hands you a scroll in exchange. You nod. You know the scroll already. You wrote it in a different life. The trade is fair. Someone behind you laughs. You turn, and the cafe is back. The pastry is gone. The plate is empty. You breathe out. Was that me, you ask? Was it? He replies. Or was it someone you could have been? Historians still argue, he adds after a moment, whether food or memory was the first form of currency. You lean back, rubbing your temple. So every dish is a story. He shakes his head. No. Every dish is a door. The story comes after. And right on cue, the cafe door creaks open. A gust of cool air rushes in, and a woman steps through. She's young, hair tied back, eyes scanning. Not lost, but looking. She carries a pouch of spices and a notebook tied shut with string. She walks past you without a glance. The host greets her warmly, gestures to the corner, and the moment she sits, a menu appears before her. You stare. It's happening to her too. You whisper. He nods. To everyone, he shrugs. Everyone who stays long enough. You watch as the goat trots over to the woman and sniffs her boots. She passes. The man claps his hands. Time for the real menu. You frown. I thought we already had the real one. He leans in, eyes sparkling. No, he says. That was just the appetizer. Section 5. Persian ice and Chinese smoke. The real menu doesn't arrive on paper. It arrives on a platter carried by nothing you can see, only the shifting of candlelight, the faint tinkle of bells, and the unmistakable sound of something placing itself gently in front of you. It's a scroll, tied with a thread of dried seaweed. Not that you know that at first you only recognize the smell, briny ancient, the scent of ocean clinging to something that should have crumbled centuries ago. You glance up at your host. He nods once. Go ahead. You untie the scroll. It doesn't unravel like parchment. It unfolds like memory. Layers and layers of fine rice paper, translucent, covered in script that changes even as you try to read it. One line is Arabic, another Tangut, another possibly Aramaic. The header stabilizes for just a moment. Enough for you to read. Course 5. Ice from Persia, smoke from Cathay. Below that, a brief note in neat brushstrokes. Inhale gently. Let it melt slowly. Do not speak for the first 3 bites. As if summoned, the dish arrives. It's beautiful. 2 scoops of sorbet, glowing faintly under the lantern light. One the color of pearl, the other black as a closed eye. Steam, or is it smoke, rises in spirals from beneath them, even though they're ice cold to the touch. A ceramic spoon rests on the side, carved with a pattern that looks vaguely like a map. You take the first bite of the white scoop, and instantly winter. Not cold exactly, not the pain of frozen fingers, but the idea of winter. Wind slicing through silk. Footsteps muffled by snow outside a tiled palace. You're standing in Isfahan watching an old man chip ice from a block hauled down from the mountains by donkey and prayer. You blink. The spoon is halfway to your mouth again. Second bite. The dark scoop. Smoke, but delicate, nuanced. Not firewood or charcoal, this is tea leaves, incense, crushed clove. You feel yourself seated cross-legged in a wooden room, lacquered screens filtering late afternoon sun. A woman is lighting a pipe, not for tobacco, but for ceremony. The smoke curls around your shoulders like a shawl. Third bite, and suddenly both. Winter and smoke, Persia and Cathay, cold lips and burning lungs, trade routes crossing not only land, but taste. You're silent, just as the scroll instructed. Your host is watching carefully now. It's not about contrast, he says softly. It's about cohabitation. Persian ice houses and Chinese tea smoke existed centuries apart, you manage to say. Or maybe they didn't, he replies. Historians still argue whether sorbet truly spread west from China, or if it rode into Persia in reverse, tucked into saddlebags beside silk scrolls. You pause. Isn't that backwards? He grins. Everything is backwards here, if you're facing the wrong way. You let the last bit melt on your tongue. This time, it tastes like ink. Faintly metallic, you catch the flash of a horse's bridle in your mind, and a phrase in a voice that's not yours. One day the road will forget its travelers. You set down your spoon. The bowl is empty again. The scroll is gone. Instead, in its place, sits a small lacquered box. You look to your host. For cleansing the palate, he says. You open it. Inside, 2 almond cookies, a sliver of candied citron, and something folded. A napkin? No. A letter. You unfold it. The handwriting is delicate, rushed. It begins, "If you are reading this, then you've eaten the ice and breathed the smoke. You're ready." You glance back at the host, but he's looking away, busying himself with a copper kettle. You read on. The letter details a memory not your own. A traveler name forgotten who once ate a similar dessert and was then given a map. The map did not lead to gold or spice. It led to a city that existed only for those who had tasted both winter and fire in the same breath. The city had no name, no gates, no citizens, just kitchens, endless kitchens, where food was preserved, invented, whispered. "Did you write this?" you ask aloud. The man turns. "No," he says. "She did. She..." But the moment you ask, the curtain lifts again, and the veiled woman from before steps through. The one who made the bread. Her hands are stained with saffron and soot. She walks silently to your table, picks up the lacquered box, takes out the cookies, and places one in front of you. Then she places the other on the empty table beside you. You glance. The chair is unoccupied, but the cookie is gone. You look back. The woman has disappeared again. The host leans in. "Did you notice it?" "What, the plate?" he says. "It's different now." You peer down. He's right. The ceramic plate, once empty now, shows an illustration in faint glaze, an image of you seated exactly as you are now. Except in the reflection, your eyes are glowing. You push the plate away gently. The room dims for a moment. The steam from the dessert has pooled near your hands, and in it, you swear you see lines, contours, a map. The host smiles. Some guests leave with recipes. Others leave with directions. You narrow your eyes. Directions to what? To your next appetite, he says. Or maybe your first one. Depends how far back you're willing to follow it. You lean back, dizzy from ice, from smoke, from questions. Outside through a window you're sure wasn't there before the stars have begun to fall sideways across the sky, and the goat, still perched at the sill, looks up and says, clear as day, "You're going to want to pace yourself." Section 6. The Caravan of Silent Chefs. The goat definitely just spoke. You stare at her. She stares back, completely unbothered. One ear twitches, and then, just to really drive it home, she yawns. She just did, she? You ask. The host doesn't even flinch. Yes, yes. She gets one sentence per course. It's in her contract. Wait, the goat has a contract. Well, he says lifting the copper kettle and pouring its contents into a series of tiny bowls, she claims it's a contract. Could also be a curse, or a very bureaucratic blessing. Historians still argue whether animals on the Silk Road were just beasts of burden or unofficial diplomats in their own right. You're not sure what to do with that. But you are sure of one thing now. This is no ordinary cafe. Which is probably why you're no longer surprised when a procession enters through the curtain. 7 figures robed in pale linen, veiled from head to toe. They move silently, hands tucked into sleeves. No footsteps, no sound, just presence. Each one takes up a position along the back wall behind long counters you hadn't noticed until now. They don't speak, but the air thickens. One of them opens a cedar box. Another lifts a ladle. A third begins grinding something in a mortar that smells like fennel and starlight. Maybe not literally, but your nose doesn't feel like it's operating on familiar rules anymore. The host sets a bowl in front of you. This one is empty. He grins. You're not going to eat this one. Okay, you're going to watch it being made. You tilt your head confused until you realize something remarkable. The bowl is a window, not a metaphor. Literally a window. Round and shallow, its inside surface shimmers like a liquid mirror. You lean in, and suddenly you're elsewhere. A yurt, wind outside, a kettle suspended over a low fire. Someone's humming off-key but soothing. A woman stirs a pot, sprinkling something in from a pouch tied to her belt. Fermented mare's milk, says the host. You nearly jump out of your skin. What in the vision, he clarifies. You're watching an old Mongolian recipe. Very prized, very pungent. They used to bury it underground for weeks. You watch as the woman pulls a hot stone from the fire and drops it into the pot. Steam whooshes up thick and white. Did she invent that, you ask? No, says the host. But she remembered it better than anyone else. So now it comes through her. Another scene forms. Now you're in a Persian courtyard. A child is pounding rose petals with a pestle, then mixing them with honey and saffron. Her fingers are sticky. She licks one, grins. That's how we got the base for Faluda, he says. Cold dessert, rosewater noodles. The trick is in the balance. Scene after scene flickers past the inside of your bowl like a historical TikTok channel that forgot to load properly. Turkish women drying mint on latticework rooftops. Tibetan monks cracking open salted butter tea. A blind man in the Taklamakan desert sniffing his way through jars of pepper, labeling them by sound. You stare transfixed. You see why I bring them in now, the host says, nodding toward the silent procession. They're the conduit, not chefs exactly. More like archivists. The one closest to you lifts a hand. She or he, it's impossible to tell, places a silver tray on your table. On it, nothing you recognize. At first glance, it's just a smear of something yellow, a curl of something black, and a shard of translucent orange. But then the scent hits you. Coriander, ink, sandalwood. You take a cautious bite of the orange shard. It dissolves instantly, flooding your mouth with something like old paper and citrus that's dried orange peel soaked in rice wine. And secrets, says the host. You try not to laugh mid-chew. Next, the yellow smear. Rich, earthy, tangy. That's lentil puree, he says, but from a variety that hasn't grown in over 800 years. She reconstructed it based on a poem. You point with your spoon. Wait, what? He shrugs. Poets are better at flavor than you'd think. And finally, the black curl. You pop it in. It snaps like a brittle leaf, tastes like smoke molasses and regret. Charred fig skin soaked in vinegar and dried under camel leather, he says. Popular for about 3 weeks in a small outpost north of Kucha, completely forgotten after the well dried up. You sit back, stunned. So they're recreating lost meals. He leans in. More than that. They're retrieving unwritten ones. You pause. Unwritten? Many dishes never made it into cookbooks, never crossed borders, but they existed, briefly, gloriously, and here we remember them. You look around. The procession of silent archivists continues moving, stirring, slicing, distilling. How do they know you whisper? He smiles. The ingredients remember. The wind remembers. The ghosts remember. You glance down at your bowl again. This time the mirror shows your reflection. But it's changing. You're wearing robes. Your hands are scarred from burns. A long wooden spoon tucked behind your ear. You were a cook, the host says gently, in another life maybe, or in this one but forgotten. You shake your head. I've never cooked anything more complex than microwave noodles. He pats your shoulder. Then tonight's going to be a very illuminating night for you. At that moment, the goat hops off the windowsill, saunters over and burps quietly near your chair. Apologies, says the host. She's allergic to time travelers. Section 7. The bread that told a lie. There's a low chime somewhere between a bell and a raindrop, and the archivists vanish. Not dramatically. Not even particularly mysteriously. They simply walk behind the curtain again, and the air rearranges itself as if they were never there. Only one thing remains. A plate. On it, a single piece of flatbread. Round, soft, warm, its surface dappled with brown from the griddle, its edge slightly cracked. You've seen bread like this before. It looks ordinary, comforting, and yet, you reach for it instinctively. Your fingers brush the surface, and a lie you told when you were 7 comes rushing back. Not a big one. Something about who broke the window. You blamed the neighbor's dog. Everyone believed you. The dog got yelled at. You blink hard. What? Was that? The host nods toward the bread. Memory loaf. It shows up when the cafe thinks you're hiding something. I'm not hiding anything, you say too quickly. He raises an eyebrow. You stare at the flatbread. The crack along the edge seems deeper now, like a fissure in a dried riverbed. You tear off a piece and eat. And again, it happens. A memory, but not yours. This time you're walking through a village carrying a basket of dates. You stop at a door knock once, and when a woman answers, you hand her the basket and say something in a language you don't know. Except, you understand it. You knew her, the host says. I didn't. You did once. You chew, swallow. So this bread gives you false memories. Real ones, he says. But perhaps not yours. You pause. How is that possible memory? He says is a spice. It moves from vessel to vessel. It seeps. It transfers. Especially when no one's watching. You stare at the remaining bread. So this belonged to someone else. Multiple someone else's, he says. That loaf has been broken by traitors, cooks, thieves, kings, lovers, liars. You pick it up again, cautiously. It's heavier than before. And what am I exactly? He smiles. Hungry. You take another bite. This time you're not even in your body. You're floating above a campfire. Below you, someone is flipping the same kind of bread on a convex pan using fingers instead of tongs. There's laughter. Lanterns. A woman sings something in a low, throaty voice. Then you fall back into yourself, and now you remember the tune. You hum it. The goat tilts her head, surprised. The host nods. See, some recipes are songs first. You set the bread down. It doesn't steam anymore. It just rests cracked and empty. Whatever it was meant to reveal has already been given. The host pours something into your cup again. This time it's thick, like melted sugar and ash. You sip. It tastes like forgetting. And you realize that's the point. Some dishes help you remember, he says. Others help you let go. The room around you has changed again. The tables are gone. So are the chairs. You're sitting now on a woven mat, low cushions around you. Clay lanterns line the walls. The floor is packed earth cool to the touch. You are still in the cafe, and yet not. Another guest is seated beside you, an older man. Deep lines in his face, eyes closed, palms upturned. He opens his mouth and says, "You lied about the dog." You jerk in your seat. What he smiles faintly. "She forgave you, the neighbor. She never really believed it was the dog." You look to the host. He simply says, "Some guests stay longer than others." The old man continues, "You still carry that small weight, that fear of being found out, even for something no one remembers." You look down. The flatbread is gone. The goat curls up in a corner, tail flicking. The man your ghost maybe stands, nods once, walks out through the wall. You blink. The wall is solid again. "What was that, you ask?" "A correction," the host says. The bread works quickly. You sit back, lightheaded. So if that was his memory, does that mean someone else will eat mine? The host's eyes gleam. Eventually, if it ripens properly. You frown. What does that mean? "Not all memories are ready to be harvested," he says. "Some need more guilt, others more sugar." A pause. Your window story is almost there. You don't ask how he knows. You've stopped asking how anything works here. The curtain stirs again. But this time, no one comes through. Instead, something slides across the floor. A scroll. You unroll it. It reads, "Course 7 complete. Truth lies flat, but does not lie still." You look up. Is that a proverb? The host shrugs, or a suggestion. The plate is gone. The mat is gone. You're back at your original table. The light is dimmer now. The goat is asleep. The cafe sighs around you. You feel lighter. Not better, not worse. Just less burdened. The host pours one final sip. "Tamarind and thyme," he says, "to settle the soul." You drink. It tastes like dusk and dry leaves, and the hum of a story not yet told. Section 8. Spices from a Vanished Empire. You barely set down the cup when the lights shift again. Not brighter, not darker, but deeper. As if the cafe itself has thickened like a stew that's been simmering too long, and suddenly starts telling secrets. The host leans on the counter, eyes glinting. "Feeling all right?" You nod slowly. "I think so." "Good," he says, "because the next course is delicate." A hand reaches from behind the curtain. No body. Just a hand wrinkled and ringed with gold. It sets a small wooden tray on your table and retreats. On the tray, a dish so small it might be a joke. A single dumpling steaming faintly dusted with something green and glittery. You lean in. It smells like memory again, but sharper, brighter, like someone bottled a moment of joy and forgot to put on a lid. "What's this?" you ask. The host grins. "Spices from a Vanished Empire." You raise an eyebrow. "Which empire?" Well, he says historians still argue whether Lulan ever existed at all. Some say it was just a name on an unreliable map. Others think it was a trade hub lost to sandstorms and poor navigation. But here, he taps the tray. Here the flavors still remember. You pick up the dumpling. It trembles slightly in your fingers. Not from heat, but from anticipation, like it knows it's about to be eaten after 1,000 years of waiting. You bite in. The world tilts. And now you're there. Lulan. It's dusk, and you're standing at the edge of a dried lake bed. All around you, sandstone towers crumbling. Leaning cast long shadows across abandoned roads. But the city isn't dead. Not quite. You see people, not many. Traders in long robes. A child chasing a goat across a dusty square. A woman hanging dyed cloth from a balcony that sags under its own memory. The air smells like cumin, dried dates, and hope. And then someone hands you a pouch. You take it. It's soft leather, perhaps. You open it and find seeds, spices, ones you don't recognize. Tiny, fragrant, colorful. They whisper names you can't pronounce, tell stories without language, and then you're back. The cafe flickers back into view like someone adjusted the reality settings. The host pours water into a cup shaped like a camel's hoof. Well, they were singing, you say. The spices. He nods. That's how we found them, in fragments of cloth in the cracks of bowls, hidden in the seams of silence. You sip the water. It tastes like sand that once bloomed. Why Lulan, you ask? Why save their food? He pauses. Because no one else did, he says. Because their flavors died before they could become fashionable. And because even forgotten kingdoms deserve a second course. You let that sit with you. And then something strange happens. The menu begins to flicker again. You haven't touched it. But now a new entry appears. Handwritten, trembling, urgent, reconstructed herbs, rare origin unknown. Possibly Lulan. Possibly myth. Consume with caution. Before you can ask, the host sets a tiny dish beside you. A single leaf. It looks wilted, curled, almost nothing. You lean in. It smells like rainfall in bronze. You eat it, and your tongue goes numb, then hot, then aware. You feel the room with your mouth, the wood of the chair, the brass of the lanterns, the silk of the air. Side effect, the host says. Heightened flavor, empathy. You raise a hand, unsure if you're still holding a body. Images crash into you. A fire-lit tent with a boiling pot. Hands grinding herbs in a mortar shaped like a skull. A man shouting across a bazaar. This is the last of the true mint, and a woman whispering, add the salt after the storm. You grip the edge of the table. It's like tasting someone else's language. Exactly, he says. These herbs were never written down. Passed only mouth to mouth. Cook to cook. Tongue to tongue. You exhale, and then realize something unsettling. The dish is still in front of you. Another leaf has appeared. You stare at it. Is it regenerating? The host shrugs. Only for a little while. Eventually the memory gets tired. You hesitate, but take the second leaf. This one tastes like betrayal and cinnamon. You don't want a third. The host sees the look on your face and gently removes the plate. Even nostalgia has limits, he says. You lean back. So Lulan left behind more than ruins. He nods. It left behind things no empire ever records: flavors, rituals, spice combinations so specific they only made sense on that particular street in that particular century. You look around the cafe. It feels heavier now, like every bite has added a layer of something not quite yours to your skin. You ask without thinking, will I remember this? The host looks at you for a long moment. Then he says, you already do. Section 9. The merchant who paid in ink. The light in the cafe dims not from nightfall, but as though the air itself has inhaled and is holding its breath. The goat, now awake again, clinks over to your side, sniffs at your elbow, and emits the faintest sigh. She seems resigned, as if she knows what's coming next. You turn to the host. I'm still hungry, you admit. He nods, unsurprised. Of course you are. That's how this works. Another tray appears. This time it's not brought by a hand or floated in through magic or memory. It's pushed onto the table with a scrape of carved jade wheels. A cart. Upon it, a scroll rolled tightly tied with red thread and sealed with wax in the shape of a teardrop. I thought we were done with scrolls, you say. We were, the host says. But this one's different. You open it. It's not a recipe. It's a contract. Short. Handwritten. Not in ink, but something darker, older. Maybe ground walnut, maybe blood, maybe both. It reads, "One bowl of knowledge in exchange for one certainty. Payment negotiable." You look up. The host gestures to the cart where a ceramic bowl now waits, steaming gently. You stare. What's in it? A broth, he says, once traded for the secrets of papermaking. According to some, a Tang dynasty scribe gave up his last ancestral story for a taste of this. According to others, he was just very hungry and had poor impulse control. You eye the bowl warily. What does it do? He shrugs. Depends on the question you ask. What question, he steps back. That's not for me to suggest. You hesitate, then lift the bowl. It smells of old parchment, of cracked inkstones and soot, and oddly of mint. You sip. The taste is layered, deep. Brothy, yes, but also sharp, like language carved into a hot surface. And suddenly you know things. Not everything, but things. You know the word for hunger in 12 extinct dialects. You know that the first scroll menu ever written was cooked over a stolen fire. You know that somewhere in the archives of a monastery is a bowl filled with recipes, written in wind patterns, still unreadable. Your breath catches, and then, before you can ask, the door opens again. A traveler walks in, drenched, shivering, holding a bundle of damp silk in one arm and a satchel of ink sticks in the other. The goat looks up and bleats once softly. The traveler bows to the host, says a few words you don't recognize, produces a thin packet of old hand-bound paper, places it on the counter like it's made of crystal. The host picks it up, turns it over, nods. He gestures toward your table. The traveler sits across from you, says nothing. You stare. Do I know you? They remove their hood. You flinch, because the face, though older, weathered thinner, is yours. Almost. The host appears beside you. That's the merchant who paid in ink, he explains. Paid for what you whisper. Access to recipes, to language, to memory. He traded away every story that wasn't his, and then the ones that were. You look at the version of yourself across the table. They open the satchel, pull out a quill made from a crow's feather, dip it into nothing, just the air, and begin to write, on the wood of the table itself, and the letters glow. You were always going to be here. Why am I seeing this, you ask? Because the broth works fast, the host says, and because you've reached the part where knowledge costs more than hunger. You look back at your doppelganger. They're weeping now, but still writing. Lines form looping across the table's grain. Recipes, poems, warnings. The ink sinks into the wood, and then slowly they vanish, just like that. Only the satchel remains. You reach for it. The goat stamps a hoof, once warning. You pause. The host nods. You can open it, but only once. What's inside, no one knows. Some say it's a map. Some say it's an unfinished recipe. Some say it's just blank pages waiting for your ink. You pick it up. It's heavier than it looks. You hold it to your chest. I don't want to open it yet, you say. Good, says the host. That means you're not done eating. A new plate arrives. No cart, no whisper. It's just there. This time noodles. Thin. Irregular. Some look ancient. Others glow faintly like they were kneaded from moonlight. Steam rises, forming shapes, geese clouds, a spiral. You lean in and inhale. The scent makes you think of debt. Not financial, but emotional. The kind of debt you owe people who once made you a meal without asking for anything back. You twirl the noodles with your fork. Am I still me, you ask? The host sighs. Do you feel like you don't answer. You just eat. And somewhere in a corner of the cafe, you still haven't explored something behind a locked door begins to stir. Section 10. The spoon that burned. Cold. The noodles settle in your stomach like a memory you didn't mean to recall. Not painful, just true. A simple truth, like realizing you once loved someone you never properly thanked. You set your fork down. It clicks against the ceramic blue and white with a pattern that seems to change depending on which direction you glance from. At one angle, it's a lotus. Another, a pair of crossed keys. Another, still your own initials, or what you think might be your initials, in a script no longer used. The goat has returned to your side, chewing on something you're 80% sure is part of the curtain. She looks up at you and blinks. A long, meaningful blink. She's saying, "You've eaten enough," says the host. But she always says that. "I don't think I can stop you," admit. "It's not just hunger anymore. It's curiosity." Exactly, he says, pleased. That's when the menu starts getting interesting. You look down. No menu. Instead, in front of you sits a single utensil. A spoon. But it's wrong. It's shaped like a crescent. The bowl of it is cold, so cold it leaves a numb imprint in the air. The handle is coiled metal looped twice like a serpent swallowing its own tail. You touch it. It stings. Why is it freezing, you ask? The host pours something into a small black bowl and sets it in front of you. "Because this is the spoon that burned cold," he says. That sounds made up. Most valuable things do. The liquid inside the bowl is a deep crimson. Viscous, almost syrupy. It doesn't steam, doesn't smoke. But you feel heat rising off it even though the spoon keeps chilling your fingertips. "What is it?" you whisper. "A reduction of history," he says. Specifically, betrayal boiled slowly with licorice root and salt from a forgotten port. You look at him. Betrayal. He nods. One of our older recipes, inspired by a silk smuggler from Chang'an who tried to pass stolen secrets to a Roman agent and ended up boiled alive in his own dye vat. Allegedly, historians still argue whether the whole thing was a cautionary tale invented by tailors. That escalated, you say. He smiles gently. Everything does eventually. You lift the spoon despite its cold protest, dip it into the bowl. The liquid clings, shimmers, pulses faintly. You take a sip, and you're not here anymore. You're running. Down an alley paved with brick, your feet slick with dye runoff. You're clutching a package wrapped in silk, warm to the touch. Behind you, shouting. Not in a language you speak, but one your body understands. You duck into a shop. A loom thunders in the dark. Someone, a woman with scarred palms, blocks your path. She says something. You beg. You lie. You offer everything. She points to the back door. You escape, but you drop the package, and you never see her again. In silence. And you're back, sweating, breathing hard, clutching the cold spoon like it might bite. That, you start. The host nods, memory steeped in bloodroot, burns on the way in, freezes on the way out. Is that me again? Not quite, he says, but someone like you. Close enough that your taste buds still recognize the echo. You look down, the bowl is now empty, the spoon is warm. You whisper, did he deserve it? Who the smuggler? The host doesn't answer for a long time. Then he says, everyone deserves a last meal. You set the spoon aside. It clinks against the table, and for a second you hear something else. Not metal on ceramic, but a voice, a whisper. Hide it well. You freeze. The host doesn't react. You check the spoon again, but it's just a spoon now. Slightly bent, still faintly cold, but silent. You look up. Did it talk? He shrugs. Some utensils are chatty, especially the cursed ones. That was a cursed spoon. It's all relative, he says. It's only cursed if you keep it. You shove it away from you. Too late now, he says cheerfully. It's part of your course. You'll dream about it for a week or two. Maybe hum in Sogdian when you brush your teeth. You slump in your chair. The goat offers you a sympathetic look, then bites the scroll you forgot you were holding. You pull it back, but the seal is broken. The pages inside are no longer blank. They now hold sketches, maps, trails, a series of small forks, some crossed out. What is this, Roots? The host says. You're not the only one who's eaten that spoon. It records the escape paths of everyone who didn't quite make it. You look closer. One path glows faintly gold. It loops, circles, doubles back, and ends in a mark shaped like the cafe itself. So, they came back, you whisper. He nods, or never left. You feel something stirred deep in your ribs. Not fear, not quite, but the beginning of purpose. What happens if I follow the map? You'll reach the kitchen, he says, eventually. And what's in the kitchen? He leans in, voice low. The reason you came. You open your mouth to ask what that means, but he's already gone. Replaced by a sound, a soft knock, from inside the wall. Section 11. The girl who drew maps in steam. The knock comes again. 3 gentle taps evenly spaced. Not threatening, not desperate, just intentional. You glance at the wall. It's the one to your right stone, slightly damp looking now, even though this place has no plumbing you've seen. There's no door, no curtain, just unbroken wall, until it isn't. With a sound like fabric being torn underwater, a seam appears, vertical. Pale blue light spills out through the crack. The goat perks up but doesn't follow as you stand. Are you going? She asks in your voice. You turn to her startled, but not surprised. Yes, you whisper. The seam widens and you step through. No resistance, just a shift. And now you're somewhere colder. A narrow corridor lined with misted glass. The walls breathe. Not metaphorically, they literally pulse in and out as though the space itself is exhaling slowly. Ahead, the steam thickens. You walk forward, shoes whispering against wet stone. The corridor opens into a small room. Fog dances near the ceiling. At its center, a round table, a teacup, and someone hunched over it. A girl, no older than 12, barefoot, hair tied with twine. She draws with her finger on the table's surface, which is covered in condensation. You approach slowly. Her drawing is a map. You recognize the shapes, the bend of the Silk Road near Dunhuang, the spine of the Tian Shan, a dot labeled simply, "This is where we got lost." She speaks without looking up. "You're late." "I didn't know I was coming," you reply. She shrugs. "That's what they all say." "Who are you?" "The one who maps the places that stop existing," she says. After the recipes disappear, you sit across from her. "Why are you here?" She looks up. Her eyes are cloudy, but not blind, just filled with memory. "I was born in a city that no longer has a name," she says, "but the soup still remembers me, so I draw." You glance down. The table has more drawings now, some with dotted lines, arrows, warning marks like ancient weather charms. "Where do these go?" She touches one. A spice market in a town buried under 6 meters of sand. Another. A baker who only sang recipes and was forgotten because no one thought to listen. Another. A river where pickled fish once decided a war. You blink. Fish decided a war. She smiles faintly. You've never had the right pickled fish. You reach out, and the condensation on the table swirls toward you, forming lines. A new map. A trail from the cafe spiraling outward over dunes through cities that flicker in and out of time. Past ruins you haven't seen. Across water. Into fog. And at the center, a kitchen. The girl traces the path. You'll need to go there eventually. Why? because that's where it's being cooked. What is? She leans close, whispers, the dish that ends your appetite. You feel a shiver ripple through your chest. What happens if I eat it? She looks sad, and you stop hungering. Forever. That sounds peaceful. It is, she says, but it's also the end of wonder. You sit back. The steam thickens again. When it clears, she's gone, but her map remains drawn in vapor, still changing. You touch the trail. It's warm, and then the walls open again. This time into the cafe proper. You step back inside. Nothing has changed, but everything feels changed. The goat is asleep. The host is polishing a spoon that wasn't there before. You sit. Your next dish is already waiting. A small cup. Inside water. Clear. Plain. You look at the host, puzzled. Palate reset, he says. Too many flavors cloud the path. You drink and feel clean. Then another plate. This one is flat wide and painted in gold lines. On it, nothing. But as soon as you blink, it's full. Ink. Black. Glossy. Still rippling. You lean in and see a reflection. But not your own. It's her. The girl. Drawing with her finger on a foggy table. Her mouth moves. You hear nothing. But her finger writes something in the ink. It forms in the dish before you. Ask the right question. You look at the host. He nods slowly. So you ask, why me? And the ink answers. It doesn't write. It becomes. Images ripple up scenes, sensations. You as a child watching someone stir soup and wondering what made it taste like home. You in a library skimming a recipe you didn't know you'd one day crave. You throwing away a notebook filled with scribbled dishes you never dared try. You on the road, lost, hungry, open. And then one last image. A door. This cafe's door, opening for you long before you ever arrived. The ink vanishes. The plate is empty again. You breathe in. The host places something beside you. Quietly. A folded piece of parchment. Not food, a note. It reads, there's one course left, and you already know what it is. Section 12. The day the desert turned blue. You sit still, fingers resting on the folded parchment. Its surface warm, not with heat, but with intention, like it's been waiting for you far longer than you've existed. The cafe is hushed now. The goat doesn't stir. The lights don't flicker. Even the shadows have taken their places as though they too understand the gravity of what comes next. You unfold the parchment. No instructions. No riddle. Just a line written in a calm, steady hand. Step outside. The desert is ready. The host is behind you before you can turn. He opens the door. Beyond it, no longer the alley of dust or the twisting streets you came through, only sand. Stretching in every direction, smooth and silver blue under a sky the color of ink, diluted in milk. No wind, no stars, only stillness and the faint scent of cinnamon drifting outward from the threshold. You hesitate. Will I come back? Only if you return hungry. You step outside. The door closes behind you, not with finality, but with pause. You don't look back. The sand is cold beneath your feet. The silence is velvet. You walk. No markers, no path. Just a direction you can't name, but feel in your chest like a string gently tugged forward. Then far ahead, you see it, a swirl of color blue, bright and impossible, rising from the dunes like mist spun from lapis. The sky above it pulses faintly. The air shimmers. You approach and realize it's not a mirage. It's a storm, but not one of wind or rain. This is pigment. Dust dyed blue, curling and dancing in the air, sifting through the dunes like breath. It doesn't howl, it hums. A deep, wordless song that feels familiar, like something your bones remember, but your mind can't quite grasp. You step into it. Immediately your skin tingles. Not pain, just pressure like the air itself is gently pressing your memories inward. Colors burst behind your eyes. You taste saffron. You smell boiled lamb. You hear a voice you thought you'd forgotten calling you to dinner. The storm thickens. And then you see them. Figures walking within the blue, slow, deliberate. Some wear traders' robes. Others carry trays. One has a broken ladle tied to their belt. They don't speak, but as you pass them, they each turn their heads to look at you. Not to judge, just to see. A silent recognition, as if your presence completes a pattern they've long been walking without knowing the final shape. You press forward. At the center of the storm stands a platform. No structure, no building, just a wide, flat stone surrounded by sand and light. Upon it, a small bowl, covered in a fine cloth embroidered with a single symbol, one that shifts each time you try to pin it down. You reach for it. The cloth lifts with no breeze. The bowl is full of what you're not sure. It's colorless. It reflects the sky. It smells like all the meals you never finished. You crouch down and you listen, because the bowl is singing, not loud, not melodic, but layered, a harmony of moments. Someone lighting a fire, someone grinding spice, someone laughing through tears. The rhythms of cooking, of waiting, of hunger, answered and unanswered. You reach out and finally eat. It doesn't taste like food. It tastes like forgiveness. For all the meals you ignored. For the hands that fed you without thanks. For the recipes you never asked. For the dishes you rushed through. The times you swallowed without noticing. It tastes like the first time you truly knew you were being cared for. You close your eyes. When you open them, the storm has begun to fade. The blue dust drifts upward, becoming sky. The platform dissolves under your feet, becoming sand. And far in the distance, you see the cafe again. A small light, flickering, waiting. Section 13, a receipt, written in bone. You walk back across the sand bowl, still warm in your hands, though its contents are long gone. No wind, no sound but your own breath, and the memory of the storm still humming faintly behind your ribs. The cafe's lantern sways in the distance like it knows you're coming. The door opens before you knock. Inside, the warmth hits you like a familiar scent. Spice, citrus, something toasted. The goat is curled up near the fire again, one eye opening as you enter, then promptly closing with a grunt of approval. You place the empty bowl on the nearest table. The host doesn't ask where you've been. He only gestures toward a new seat. It's not where you sat before. This one is tucked near the far wall, near the crooked bookshelf, the one with cookbooks in a dozen languages, and one in no language at all, just smells pressed between the pages. You sit. The table before you is empty except for a bone. Long, thin, polished smooth by time. Not animal. Or maybe it is, but not one you've ever eaten. Not that it matters. What matters is what's written on it. Tiny scratches carved with care and desperation. A name, a date, a number, and a symbol you now recognize etched into the cloth from the bowl in the desert storm. You look up. The host appears at your side. Receipt, he says, carved into bird bone, found in a sealed jar beneath a collapsed pantry wall. You frown. Someone paid for their meal with a bone. Some forms of currency don't depreciate, he replies. You turn the bone over. More writing. A message, perhaps. A story. But it's in a script you don't recognize until you do. Because you dreamed this once. Or read it in the back of a book that didn't belong to you. You trace the lines and suddenly a phrase surfaces. I ate what I could not name. I left what I could not carry. You run your fingers along the edge. The bone hums. Not a sound, but a vibration. A warning. A memory. The host places a plate beside it. Nothing fancy. Just a piece of roasted root vegetable and a small square of something glistening. A taste of what they left behind, he says, and something they never got to try. You hesitate. Whose he nods to the bone. The guest who carved that. They came during the sandfall years. Left just before the kitchen closed the first time. You've closed before. Twice, he says. Once during the collapse. Once during the age without thirst. Both times reopened. With adjustments. You pick up the root. It tastes like sorrow. Not the overwhelming kind. More like the ache you carry after someone forgets to say goodbye. The square sweet. Almost too sweet. It balances the first perfectly. Together, they form something like gratitude. You swallow and glance again at the bone. I feel like I know this person, you whisper. You do, says the host. You shared one of their memories during the lentil course. The afternoon in the marketplace with the silver-eared woman. That was theirs. You sit back dizzy. So I've eaten part of someone else's life. He shrugs. You've also offered yours. You look at your hands, still your hands, but somehow marked by every flavor, every bite-shaped truth you've tasted in this place. The cafe around you shimmers slightly, as if lit from the inside out. The goat stretches, sighs, and shifts again, and then from the shelves behind you, a drawer slides open. Inside parchment, folded once, tied with a black string. You open it. Inside, drawn in the same exact hand as the writing on the bone, is a diagram of the cafe, of this very room, but different. No walls, just tables. Endless tables in a spiral. At the center, a fire. Not a hearth, not a stove, just flame. Controlled, deliberate. The source of all cooking, maybe. You point. This isn't here. Not yet, he says. You glance up. Is it real? It's a memory of a possibility, the host replies. A place some of us have been building toward, one recipe at a time. Is that the kitchen, you ask? He nods. A future kitchen. Not in space, but in hunger. You fold the diagram and place it beside the bone. And then the plate is gone. So is the bone. Only your memory of their taste remains. The host leans forward. One more course. You wait. He doesn't move. I thought you start. No, he interrupts gently. This one you don't eat. You tilt your head. He points toward the wall. Not the door. Not the curtain. A mirror. It wasn't there before. Now it is. You stand and walk to it. In the reflection yourself. Older. Wiser. Wearing something stitched with patterns you recognize from the desert map. Your eyes hold flavors. Your posture suggests you fed others, not just eaten. You reach toward the glass. It ripples, then stills. And written in the bottom corner in steam, you are the recipe now. Section 14. The final course never served you. Step away from the mirror, but its final words cling to you as though written not in steam, but in the hollows behind your ribs. You are the recipe now, not a guest, not a traveler, a carrier of flavor, of memory, of stories measured in teaspoons and centuries. The cafe is quieter now, not silent, but reverent. The goat watches you from her cushion near the hearth. The host stands beside the counter polishing a glass that doesn't seem to need it. You return to your seat. There is no plate, no bowl, no scroll. Just a folded napkin. Cloth, not paper. Thick, hand-woven, patterned with indigo lines like river paths stitched through with crimson thread. It looks old. It smells like cardamom and old wood. You unfold it. A single sentence stitched in thread. The final course is what you leave behind. You sit still. A little cold now, though nothing around you has changed. What does that mean? You ask quietly. The host stops polishing and sets the glass down. It means this next part is up to you. You look at your hands. I'm not a chef. He smiles. Everyone is. Eventually, you look around. The cafe is no longer full of tables, just yours. One chair, one light above it, a blank plate in front of you. He sets something down beside it. A quill, a bottle of ink, a tiny square of parchment, no bigger than your palm. You write your own dish now, he says. It doesn't have to be perfect, just honest. You hesitate. Write what he leans in. Write the flavor that you think only you remember. The one dish you never found again. The one you've chased your whole life without knowing it. You stare at the parchment. Your fingers grip the quill, and the memory comes before the words. A bowl of soup. Not remarkable. Just simple ginger green onion, soft bits of rice. Someone stirred it gently as you cried. Not a word was spoken. No recipe, no secret. Just warmth. You were 9. You write it down. Not ingredients, not measurements, just why it mattered. When you finish, the parchment is warm. You fold it. The host appears at your side, holding a drawer open in the wooden wall behind him. Inside, hundreds of others. Some neat, some messy. All folded, all sealed. He takes yours and places it among them. There, he says, now someone else can taste what you've carried. You breathe. It feels like putting down something heavy you didn't know you were holding. I didn't think it would matter, you say. It always matters, he replies, especially the small dishes. You sit back unsure of what comes next. The goat stretches, stands, and walks to you. She drops a single dried fig on your lap. For the road, the host says. You look at the fig. It's wrinkled, sweet-smelling, tied with a thread of silk that matches your childhood blanket. The door opens again. This time, no sand, no storm, just night. Quiet. The stars above familiar. You turn to the host. Is it over? He looks toward the wall of drawers. Only this meal. But you'll cook more. You'll taste more. And someday, maybe sooner than you think, you'll serve someone else a dish they'll never forget. He gestures toward the door. You stand. The goat doesn't follow. She watches you with something like approval. Or maybe she's just tired. You step toward the door, but pause. There's no goodbye spoken, just a nod from the host. You walk out. And though you don't feel it happen, the door disappears behind you. You're not lost. You're not full either. But the hunger is different now. Not emptiness. Possibility. You walk on. In your pocket, the fig. In your memory, every bite. And in your chest, warm, quiet, sure a kitchen, waiting to be built. Section 15. View the cafe and what comes next. You walk until the path becomes suggestion, until the night air tastes like tea gone cold, and the ground beneath your feet carries a rhythm you didn't know you'd learned. Somewhere behind you, the cafe dissolves gently like steam rising from broth, folding back into the story that summoned it. You don't turn around. The final course is not something to look back on. The fig in your pocket feels heavier now. You resist the urge to eat it. It's not food anymore. It's a keepsake, a compass, a promise that flavor doesn't end with the tongue. The night deepens, and then just ahead a light. Not the cafe. Something smaller. A tent perhaps, with a cooking fire sputtering just outside. A lone figure sits beside it, tending a pot with one hand and scribbling into a leather-bound book with the other. You draw closer. She hears you. Looks up. She doesn't speak. Just studies your face for a moment, then shifts, making room beside the fire. You sit without speaking. She stirs the pot, then gestures toward a bowl. You take it. Steam rises thin, spiced, not unfamiliar. A dish meant for travelers, nothing dramatic. Lentils, rice, maybe a hint of cinnamon. You sip, and it's good. She watches you eat but still says nothing. Then she pushes her notebook toward you. On the open page, a diagram, notes, arrows leading nowhere. At the top, the cafe. If it was real. She turns the page. More sketches. One of a goat. One of a bowl that reflects stars. Another of a kitchen you recognize, though you've never seen it in daylight. She speaks at last. Have you heard the stories? You nod. I've tasted them. She smiles. Not surprised, just grateful. You pull the parchment from your pocket, the one with your memory, your dish. She reads it slowly, lips forming each word. She sets it beside her notes and begins sketching again. Your bowl, the steam, the hand that stirred it. You realize what's happening. She's documenting the cafe, not for proof, for flavor. You eat another spoonful of her stew. It's simple, yes, but you catch something else. A faint trace of dried fig. She sees your face and chuckles. A man came through weeks ago, left behind a story I couldn't quite finish. Thought I'd try it out. You both laugh quietly. The stars above seem closer now. And so without meaning to, you begin telling her what you remember. The soup that hummed, the bread that told the truth, the girl who mapped lost places in steam, the spoon that burned cold. She writes it all down. Not because she doubts, because she understands. The fire crackles. You share seconds and thirds. Eventually you rise. She doesn't stop you. She's still writing. You walk into the night. No destination, no map. But inside you something new has taken root. A hunger that doesn't ask to be filled, only shared. A recipe you haven't yet written. A dish that tastes like silent starlight, and someone finally understanding what you meant without asking twice. You keep walking, no longer alone, no longer just a guest. Now a storyteller, a flavor bearer, a kitchen waiting to happen. And now your journey slows. The road behind you is soft, worn, stitched together from the threads of 1,000 dishes. You don't need to see the cafe anymore to know it's there. Its door will always open for those who need it. Its kitchen will always simmer in some quiet corner of your memory, feeding you in ways you don't fully understand until much later. Sometimes, years later, when you smell something familiar and stop heart-stirring, wondering where you've tasted that kindness before. Let the silence wrap around you now, like warm bread pulled fresh from the hearth. Let the echo of steam and saffron melt into your breath. You are no longer hungry, not in the old way. You've been reminded of something deeper, that food isn't just sustenance. It's history, hope, a language that needs no translation. So as your eyelids grow heavy and your thoughts slow into a gentle simmer, carry with you the comfort of one truth. Somewhere, someone is stirring a pot for someone else, seasoning it with stories, laughter, and a bit of salt for the ache. Maybe it's you. Maybe it always was. Sleep well, traveler. You've eaten beautifully. End of script. Sweet dreams. Thank you so much for traveling all the way through the cafe on the Silk Road and its unexpected menu. If you've stayed with me through the final spoonfuls of this story, thank you truly. Maybe you've felt it too, a scent you can't quite name, a memory that doesn't feel like yours, or simply the feeling of sitting in a small cafe perched between the real and the not quite real. If tonight's tale made you smile or just helped you sleep a little easier, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next strange stop along the way. And if you've ever been somewhere like this on a map or just in a dream, leave a comment below. Who knows? Maybe one day your story will be the next one whispered here over warm tea and flickering shadows. Sleep well. I'll see you in the next dream.